What's up everybody, it's Lethal Air. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you something very special. That's right, and it's something that not a lot of people have the ability to give to you. You will not find content like this on the internet. Now, that isn't to say that there's no one out there that does these things. Most people do these things without even knowing. In fact, most pro players use some of the techniques that I'm going to show you in this video. And after you're done watching it, you can go look at their content and gameplay and find these techniques in there. You can identify exactly what they're doing, even if they're not able to teach it to you themselves. But that's what this channel's for. So if you haven't already, leave a like on the video and let's begin. Right off the bat, I can guarantee you that if you're missing most of your shots in my aim training range, you're gonna go over to pubs, you're gonna get in arena, and you're gonna miss most of your shots there too. And you can blame RNG, but aim training is one of the only things that translates 100%. My recommendation, just get good. Tip number 1, use your body. I'm using the crouch uncrouch mechanic to cover the distance from the waistline to the chest and from the chest to the head. So in other words, when I move, you move, just like that. And I'm not crouch spamming, I'm simply using the crouch mechanic to adjust my aim. Check it. Everything's better with a little swagger. Tip number 2, hip fire tracking is the most important skill you can have in the game. You can use this with ARs, shotguns, you can no scope with snipers, but most of the time hip fire tracking is going to apply to SMGs or ARs. And there's a lot of players out here who can laser snipe at you all day with ARs and infantry rifles, but as soon as you close the distance, they ain't nothing. And if you're not an aggressive player, but you want to become one, practicing your hipfire tracking is one of the first steps you can take just to make you more comfortable in close quarters engagements. Now, as a disclaimer, I know I can't be the only one that does this. There comes a time in every good player's game where they have to make a life-altering decision. Run away, Simba. Run away and never return. To be honest, the only tip I can give you if you're fighting a mech, my strategy is to run. If you're the only ones fighting the mech, run. If there's other players nearby, bait the mech and survive. I don't know. Pretty sure there's a nerf coming, so another video, another time. We'll cover it. On to tip number 3. Get good with the weapons you hate. Now, my personal recommendation is about an hour a day. 10 to 15 minutes is good maintenance, but if you're bad with a weapon, if there's a weapon you hate getting when you drop, turn a bad drop into a good game by practicing with that weapon for 1 hour, and you will see results not in a week, not in a couple days, but instantly. I hated the burst, but after an hour of practice, it just hits different. Now, I know what some of you are gonna say, I don't have an hour to practice, I don't get to play that long, and I understand, but when I was a kid, I didn't get to play at all. And as far as I was concerned, there was no such thing as the internet either. Now, I'm not that old, I'm only 26, but when I was growing up, I didn't have my first phone until I was 18 and I had a job. But that didn't stop my parents from cutting it off during school hours and after 11 o'clock at night, even on the weekends. So trust me when I tell you that a lot of you guys have it so much easier. So if you get an hour or 2 to play, it's better to practice for half of that time than to sit there and play 20 games or so and just die when you land, die terribly, blame your friends, get completely dominated in arena or in solos. You want to have a good time? The best way to do that is just to aim train. That way when you get into a game, you're performing and not making mistakes. I can already promise you that most players do not practice at all. And trust me, you're not one of them, because if you were, you wouldn't be here watching my tutorial. But I digress. Tip number 4, if you have moderate to high ping, you're gonna have to get a little more creative when you're aiming at moving targets. Shoot at their ear and not the nose. And you're not gonna have time to notice this in very close quarters when your opponent's moving a lot, but I'm gonna demonstrate what it looks like when you're tracking a target using this technique. Since it's only a game, you don't really need the proper terminology, but I call it leading your shot. It's something that you won't really notice with SMGs and ARs. The only weapons that will allow you to see this effect are snipers, which are projectile weapons. You can see the bullet travel and see where it's about to hit. The second factor that may make it difficult to aim train or to hit your targets in game is the actual sound of the weapon. Fast fact, in real life, light travels faster than sound. And in the game, although it's not intended, a lot of times you'll see a visual element before you hear it. To make matters even more complicated, the average reaction time of humans to visual stimuli is about 200 milliseconds. And if that's not enough, your console or your PC still has to process each and every command, and that takes time. By now it should be very clear that there are several factors that affect your gameplay, whether you're going to hit your shot or not, and these include sound delay with your video and audio being out of sync, the ping, the tick rate of the servers. So what am I saying? How can we fix this? Well, the first step is admitting that you have a problem. And a lot of these things that I mentioned, some of you might not even know about them or that they exist. But like I said at the beginning of this video, I'm going to tell you things that no one else will. And by the way, none of these things are your fault. These are problems that manufacturers of gaming peripherals like mice and controllers have had to tackle for years. If you're on controller or on mouse and keyboard, one way that you can test this is simply by spamming your crouch button while you're in game. All you have to do is look down at your hands and then keep your screen in your peripheral vision. You can instantly see the delay from when you press an action and when it's actually executed. Now onto the solution. What you can do to combat this is to simply shoot ahead of your target. Treat every single weapon in the game like it's a projectile. There are a lot of things that have to happen from the time that you click to the time that the action takes place in the game, and then even more time for it to relay the information back to your console or PC to the screen for you to see it, and then have 200 milliseconds reaction time if you're average. But I understand if you don't want to go through the complicated process, if you just want to play your game, guess what? Practice, because that works for me, it's going to work for everyone. Now, for those of you who are interested in all of these delays, if you're on controller, one thing that you can do to get rid of delay is to connect a cord to your controller from your console. You can buy this cable if you're on PS4 or Xbox at Walmart. It's probably like 10 bucks or less. The second thing you can do is don't use Wi-Fi. If you can, get an Ethernet cable. And if you're on mouse and keyboard, whether on console or PC, all gaming mice and keyboards are not created equal. First off, if you're using anything that has Bluetooth, get something else, either wired or wireless, but not Bluetooth. If you have a headset that's Bluetooth, it's going to introduce some delay to your sound. If you have a mouse that's Bluetooth, it's going to introduce delays as well. Now, wireless doesn't necessarily mean Bluetooth. Another wireless technology is 2.4 gigahertz radio. My headset and also my mouse utilize this technology. I'm not going to go too much into detail, but I'm just trying to cover all bases so that you can remove as much delay as possible. And I know I'm kind of running out of time, but there's a lot of things that I will cover in future videos. Things such as setting the affinity and the priority in your task manager on PC. The last tip that I want to give you guys that are on controller is when you pick a USB cable, don't just get a cheap one from the dollar store. Definitely go and get a cable that's designed for your controller. And with that said, don't use a charger cable either. Don't take your phone charger and plug your controller to your console thinking that it's going to be any better than using Bluetooth, because there is no guarantee. Sometimes cables can be pretty bad, and I'm just going to leave it at that. So in closing, I want to say that the best thing to practice is your hip fire tracking. When you're shooting a target at any distance, take into account that you have to shoot slightly ahead of the moving target, even if it's just pixels. And then this is the last thing I'm going to summarize, is just practice overall. Practice about an hour, and after that hour, as long as you use one weapon for 60 minutes, that's all it's gonna take to see that improvement. Guys, if this video helped you out, if you enjoyed it, let me know down in the comments section. Also, if you have any ideas for me, things you want me to cover in the future, put that down there as well. If you're not subscribed, hopefully I'll see you next time. Just make sure you enable post notifications for every upload, and I'm out. Stay thirsty.